They told her the truth, at least the medical kind, that her body couldn't carry a child, that the risks were too high, that dreams of cribs and lullabies and tiny footsteps would have to stay. Just that, dreams. And for a while she believed them. She folded away the onesies, deleted the baby name list, pretended it didn't ache every time someone else got what she couldn't. But what they didn't tell her was that motherhood isn't only something you carry in your body, it's something you carry in your spirit, in your scars, in your refusal to stop loving, even when love has nowhere to land. So when the system overlooked them, when the kids with too many files and too few hugs were slipping through the cracks, she stepped in, not with legal guardianship or paperwork, but with snacks, warm eyes, late night phone calls, and the kind of care that doesn't expire. She didn't just become a mother, she became a sanctuary for the kids no one picked, the ones who stopped expecting to be chosen. So, what happens when a woman told she could never be a mother becomes one to dozens, not by blood, but by fierce, unrelenting love? The answer will change how you define family forever. Sofia Alvarez wasn't just someone who wanted to be a mom. She was the little girl who mothered her dolls like they were sacred, the teenager who babysat the neighbors' kids and cried the day they moved away, the woman who had a Pinterest board filled with nursery colors even before she met the right person. Motherhood wasn't just a hope, it was woven into her soul, a quiet pulsing rhythm in everything she did. But at 27, her world cracked open. The doctor's voice was steady, clinical, like he was reading from a script he'd said too many times. Severe systemic lupus. The inflammation is already affecting your kidneys. Pregnancy would be dangerous, possibly fatal. It wasn't just the words, it was the space between them, the finality, the unspoken line, "You don't get to dream that dream anymore." Sophia nodded politely, thanked him, left the office with her coat wrapped tight, and cried in her car for 47 minutes, not loud sobs, just the kind of grief that leaks out slowly, like something breaking quietly without witnesses. She didn't tell many people. What could she say? That she was mourning a baby who never existed, a future no one else could see but her? So she buried it, deep, packed under layers of "I'm fine and maybe someday," and "some things just aren't meant to be." She got good at pretending, at celebrating other people's baby showers, at smiling when friends talked about diapers and daycare, at redirecting the conversation whenever someone asked, "When are you two thinking about starting a family?" Inside, though, that ache never left. It changed shape. It settled into her bones like a dull winter. But what no one saw was that even buried dreams have roots, and hers were still growing, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right kind of light. And sometimes that light comes in the form of a child who doesn't speak, a child who's never had someone stay. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it comes dressed as routine. Sophia didn't set out to save anyone. She just needed somewhere to go. Somewhere her hands could stay busy while her heart stayed quiet. So when the volunteer coordinator at the community center asked if she'd help sort through winter clothes, she said yes, not because she felt generous, but because she didn't want to be alone. That's where she met him, Jalen, 11 years old, brown eyes that didn't blink much, a too big hoodie, and shoes that were clearly someone else's before. He didn't talk, didn't ask for help. He just hovered near the snack table like he didn't belong anywhere else. On the third Friday, Sophia noticed he always grabbed the same thing: one peanut butter sandwich, no jelly, no smile, no thanks, just survival in motion. That day, she did something small. She slid a granola bar into his coat pocket without saying a word. She saw him find it an hour later. Pause, look around, and for the first time, smile. It was quick, almost invisible, but she caught it, and something flickered in her, something old, something buried. The next week, she sat at the table across from him. No pressure, no questions, just presence. And eventually, like fog lifting, he spoke. "Do you have kids?" Sophia froze. There it was, the question that always found her, even when she was hiding. She could have lied, could have given the usual deflection, but instead, she looked him in the eye and said, "No. But right now, I have you." And for a second, he didn't look like a foster kid or a case file. He looked like a son, a boy who'd never heard someone say he mattered in the present tense. That night, she sat in her car outside the center long after it closed, hands on the steering wheel, breath shaky. Not because she was sad, but because for the first time in years something had shifted, not healed, but stirred. A whisper beneath the scar. Maybe your dream didn't die. Maybe it just changed form. And that whisper would grow louder. Because Jalen wasn't the last child to find her. He was just the first to call her home. It didn't happen all at once. Sophia didn't wake up one day and decide to become a mother to dozens. She just kept saying yes. Yes to one more tutoring session. Yes to bringing cupcakes to a birthday no one else remembered. Yes to staying late when a child refused to go home to another temporary stranger. The center began calling her for anything that fell through the cracks. The child who needed a ride to court. The teen who refused to go to therapy unless Sophia came too. The girl who cried through her first period and asked Sophia, not the staff, for help. And somehow she had enough. Enough patience, enough presence, enough love, even when her body ached, even when the lupus flared and her joints screamed and the nausea came like waves. She showed up. Not because she was superhuman, but because she understood something most didn't. You don't need to be whole to hold others. She started keeping snacks in her purse, first aid kits in her trunk, spare phone chargers, job interview clothes, college brochures. And slowly the kids stopped asking if she had children. They just assumed she was someone's mom, because that's what she felt like. She learned to braid hair with trembling fingers, learned to speak teen slang, and read between the silences. Learned that sometimes motherhood looks like staying at a hospital overnight. Even when your name isn't on the emergency contact form, the staff gave her a nickname, the Anchor, because even when storms came, she didn't drift, she stayed. And yet, even as the love grew, so did the questions. Was she given too much? What if she burned out? What if the kids got too attached to someone who couldn't legally promise she'd always be there? But Sophia wasn't thinking about forever. She was thinking about today. And today, there was a child who needed dinner, a teen who needed someone to clap when he walked across a stage, a young mother who needed someone to say, "You're not alone." But not everyone understood this path she'd chosen, and some believed it would break her before it built her. Not everyone saw what Sophia was building. To some, it looked reckless. To others, it looked like denial. Her closest friends, the ones who remembered her hospital visits, her flares, the month she could barely walk. They didn't understand. "You're already fighting your own battles," one said gently. "You can't carry theirs too." Another whispered what others were too polite to say. "Are you trying to replace what you lost?" The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they touched something tender. Was she trying to fill a void, to mother her way out of grief? Maybe. But what they didn't understand was this wasn't about filling something. It was about pouring out what had always been there. The judgment didn't stop with friends. Some of the caseworkers raised concerns. She wasn't a licensed foster parent. She didn't have formal guardianship, just heart, just time, just trust. And in a system drowning in red tape and shortage, that wasn't always enough. One administrator warned her, "If you get too close and something happens, it could hurt everyone involved." But Sofia already knew heartbreak. She'd already lost what she thought was her purpose. So the threat of loss didn't scare her anymore. The thought of a child going unloved, that terrified her. Still, there were days she questioned herself. Days she missed a meeting because her fatigue hit like a freight train. Days she canceled plans because her joints wouldn't bend. She wondered if the critics were right, if she was given too much of a half-full cup, if love alone was enough. But then, a girl named Brianna left a note on her windshield after tutoring. "I'm still here because of you." 6 words. And just like that, the noise faded. Sofia wasn't chasing sainthood. She wasn't running from pain. She was walking into it with open arms and fierce softness. And for every voice that questioned her, there were children who didn't. Children who simply leaned in because they felt safe. And as the years unfolded, Sofia's love would not just comfort the forgotten. It would build something for them, something permanent, something the world couldn't ignore. By the time Sofia turned 35, she had no biological children, no family tree with branches and dates. But ask the kids from the center, and they'd tell you she had a forest, not just 1 or 2 kids who called her Mama Sophie, but dozens who texted her on holidays. Teenagers who listed her as their emergency contact, even if it wasn't official. Young adults who came back just to sit on her couch and breathe. She didn't raise them the traditional way. She didn't tuck them in every night, but she was the first to clap at graduations. The one who sent care packages to dorm rooms. The voice they called after heartbreak, rejection, or relapse. And through it all, Sofia saw a deeper need. The system was stretched thin. So many kids aged out of foster care at 18, and within a year, some were homeless, others incarcerated, many just forgotten. She couldn't stomach it. She'd seen too many birthdays celebrated with vending machine snacks, too many goodbyes written in Sharpie on moving boxes. So, with help from community members and a small grant, Sofia opened a house. Not an institution, not a shelter, a home. She called it Roots and Wings, a place for those who never had either. It started small, just 2 rooms, a shared kitchen, and a couch she'd slept on herself. But it grew, because love has gravity. And when love becomes a structure, people find shelter in it. Kids who had no last names anyone remembered started writing Alvarez on forms, not because she asked them to, but because they chose her, and she chose them back. There was Darius, who once stole from the center pantry. Now he runs the Roots and Wings garden program. There was Tiana, who arrived silent and angry, now a social worker training the next Sofia. There were reunions, heartbreaks, late night drives to the ER, and moments where she nearly gave up, but always came back because love isn't measured by ease, it's measured by return. And Sophia kept returning, even when it hurt, even when her hands shook and her knees gave out. She showed up with casseroles, homework help, and unmatched belief. And slowly, a new kind of family took shape, not by blood, but by bond. And what happened next would echo even further. Because Sophia wasn't just building a family, she was building a movement. Ask those whose lives crossed Sophia's path. And you'll hear stories that don't need embellishment, just truth. Small moments that became turning points, and people who carry her kindness like a compass. Jalen, her first. He was the boy who never used to smile. Now 19, a freshman in college studying psychology. Jalen wants to work with kids like himself. Jalen shares, I used to think love had an expiration date, like if no one claimed you by a certain age, that was it. But she changed that. She didn't try to replace my mom. She just showed up like one. That's all I ever needed. Ms. Tanaka, veteran caseworker. With over 2 decades in child services, Ms. Tanaka has seen burnout, heartbreak, and too many goodbyes. But Sophia, she says, left a different kind of imprint. Ms. Tanaka reflects, we see volunteers come and go. They bring cupcakes, hugs, sometimes a donation, but they don't stay for the hard parts. Sophia did. She didn't just visit their lives, she became part of them. I've watched kids crumble, and I've watched them rebuild because of her. Tiana, once a foster teen, now a leader. Tiana met Sophia when she was 15. Angry, guarded, convinced everyone, eventually left. Now she trains foster parents and advocates for post-placement care. Tiana says, she was the first adult who didn't treat me like a case file. When I cursed her out, she stayed. When I flunked school, she still showed up. She told me, I don't care how far you fall, just know I'll be here when you climb. That line, it saved me. Darius, from trouble to mentor. Darius was once known for stealing from the pantry. Now, he runs the Roots and Wings garden program, guiding boys who remind him of himself. Darius recalls, man, I thought she was just another volunteer. Figured I'd scare her off like I did the rest. But when I got arrested for skipping probation, she showed up in court, sat there the whole time. I looked over and she just nodded, like, I still see you. That's all it took. After that, I never let her down again. Kalisha, the quiet poet. Kalisha arrived at Roots and Wings after bouncing through 7 different foster homes. For 2 weeks, she barely spoke, until Sophia placed a journal in her hands. Kalisha says softly, she didn't ask me to talk. She just gave me a notebook and said, fill it with anything that needs to get out. I wrote poems about fear, about not being wanted, about her. I call her my chosen mother, because she saw the parts of me no one else even looked for. They came from different places with different wounds, but they all say the same thing in their own way. Sophia didn't give them everything. She gave them something more powerful, someone who believed they were worth the effort. And though Sophia never called herself a hero, her story would go on to inspire others far beyond her city. Sofia Alvarez never saw her name on a birth certificate, never felt a baby kick inside her, never packed a hospital bag or painted a nursery, but she mothered in all the ways that matter. She mothered the unseen, the unlabeled, the nearly lost. She mothered with casseroles left on doorsteps, with midnight phone calls answered with, It's okay, I'm here. With bandages, bail money, borrowed graduation gowns, with forgiveness so deep it became a mirror. She didn't need DNA to build a family. She needed courage and consistency, and the radical belief that no one is too far gone to deserve love. When she stood to speak at the 10-year anniversary of Roots and Wings, her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of what had grown. Behind her were rows of kids, now adults, with college degrees, job offers, babies of their own. Some carried tattoos of her favorite phrase, "Stay when it's hardest." She looked out at them, this mosaic of survival and softness, and said just one thing: "You made me a mother in every way that matters, and for that, I will never stop choosing you." The crowd didn't just clap, they rose, because they knew she had raised more than children, she had raised futures. And so Sofia Alvarez redefined motherhood, not as something granted, but something claimed, not as a role earned through biology, but through bravery and boundless love. She proved that sometimes the people told they can't be something are the ones most meant to be it, and that a mother isn't who brings you into the world, it's who walks beside you when the world tries to break you. And for every child still waiting to be chosen, her story remains a light. Not every story ends the way we imagined. Some dreams get rewritten, some roles find us in ways we never expected. Sophia didn't get the motherhood she once pictured: no nursery, no lullabies in the middle of the night, no tiny footsteps echoing down the hallway. But what she created was bigger. She built a love that outgrew walls, a family that defied definitions, a home where no one had to earn their worth because they were already enough. And maybe that's what motherhood is: not a title, not a checklist, but a choice to stay, to believe, to give, even when it costs you something, to love someone into their future, even if you were never promised a part in it. So here's to the other mothers, the ones who never gave birth but gave life, to the mentors, the grandmothers, the foster parents, the teachers, the neighbors, the strangers who became family, to everyone who chose to show up, even when it wasn't easy, especially when it wasn't easy. If Sophia's story moved you, leave a comment below. Tell us who mothered you when no one else did. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love doesn't need permission. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more stories like this. Stories that remind us of what it means to be human, to be broken and still give, to be told you can't, and still become more than anyone imagined. Because here, on Able in Every Way, we don't just tell stories, we honor the ones who love past every limit and become something extraordinary.